Hey everyone, in this video we're going to take a look at how to set up a closed loop integration between Cine-Q and HubSpot so that you can send out personalized videos using your HubSpot account. There'll be three key sections that we're going to cover. Firstly, we're going to have a look at how to create custom properties in HubSpot and also how to construct your emails. And in the second section, we're going to take a look at how to create a trigger campaign in Cine-Q as well as setting up the integration. And finally, we're going to go back to HubSpot and create two workflows. One is going to send the data to Cine-Q, and the second one will send the emails. So let's go over to HubSpot and go to Settings. On the left-hand side, click on Properties and click on Create Property. This is where you set up your custom properties in HubSpot, your custom fields in other words. So for example, PURL would be one of your custom fields, and when you click on this button, then you get the machine name of the field that you're about to create, and that machine name is important when you set up your integration or your emails. So let's cancel this one because we already have the fields set up for this demonstration. Now let's have a look at how to create the email. So go to marketing, click on emails, and we have our demo email already prepared in here. But if you start from scratch, then just click on the create email up on the right. So we are going to go to actions and edit email. Now it's a very basic email. The only thing I wanted to call out in here is this section which has a static image, and that static image has a dynamic URL behind it. And the dynamic URL is basically contact.personalized_URL, which will be populated by Cine-Q. So once we go into setting up the integration in Cine-Q, then we'll see it. So let's go back to Cine-Q and set up our first campaign. This demo HubSpot has already been prepared for this demonstration. If you go into the segments, what I wanted to call out is, so this is where we have the fields in Cine-Q. So Cine-Q camp trigger is the field that we're going to use to select who we want to target. And once that field is set to send me HubSpot demo, then those individuals who meet this criteria will receive this particular personalized video. And in the second section of this segmentation, we're basically just excluding everybody who has already gone through this particular campaign. So that is quite important. We'll come back to that later on in this video. So let's go over to message. We already have the message created, the video created in here. We have a base video with some sound underneath, and we can also see that the video itself has already been personalized. So it's a car insurance renewal letter, and we are addressing the viewer by the name and also stating their renewal date. So we're just using a temporary date field in Cine-Q because it's going to constantly be overwritten. So that's how we set up the personalized video itself. And then when we go to executions, this is where we can set up this campaign to be a trigger-based campaign instead of a scheduled campaign. So let's set the first time that we want this trigger to run. So we just set a date and a time in the past. It doesn't really matter because the trigger by nature is going to kick in from moving forward. So let's set the run until date to far in the future. And there we go. We have this campaign activated. It's a trigger-based campaign. So once somebody meets the segmentation rule criteria, then they will go through this campaign. And if we click on add to add an integration, we can see that currently we don't have anything in here because we haven't set up the available integrations just yet. So let's go over to data, click on integrations, and click on new integrations. We have a bunch of off-the-shelf integrations available. If your system is not listed, then please do reach out to us, and then we can assess the feasibility of adding your system to the list. So we just selected HubSpot, click on, and we can see that over here this integration hasn't been configured. So this is the indicator whether it's active or not and whether it's working or not. So let's click on the settings, and all we need to do is click on authorize. Now when we click on authorize, if you're not yet logged into your HubSpot account in this particular browser, then you will have to log in, and then that's pretty much all you have to do when you authorize. But because we already have logged in and in this browser, we will not need to do that. We have two accounts on our HubSpot account. We have two clients on our HubSpot account, so we just selected the one that we wanted to use for this integration, and that's it. That's pretty much how we connected Cine-Q with HubSpot. So it's pretty much a one-click action. Now, if we click on save, it's not going to let us save it because we haven't set up the field mapping yet. Now, there's two parts to the integration. One is when we get data from HubSpot, and the other one is when we push data to HubSpot. So let's set up both of them. The get data, so we enable the scheduling, run at say midnight and Sydney time. So what it means is that this integration will pull data from HubSpot every day. Over here we can see that every day is selected at midnight Sydney time every single day. But you can also use webhooks. So once this integration is set up, then we're going to have a webhook that we'll use in HubSpot. We'll come back to that in a moment. The unique identifier in HubSpot is email, so that's what we're going to use to map the HubSpot data to the Cine-Q data, and we do want to update all existing Cine-Q data. So let's start mapping some of these fields. The Cine-Q trigger is the one that information will come from HubSpot, and it will trigger the relevant Cine-Q campaign. The next one that we want to map is first name. Let's map it to first name. We can also map the last name. Let's find email. There's quite a few email related fields. There we go. Email. And we also need to map the CRN field because that's a required field in Cine-Q. So we could use the contact ID. Contact ID is obviously coming from HubSpot. So I forgot to mention that the left-hand side is obviously the fields in HubSpot, and the right-hand side is the list of Cine-Q available Cine-Q fields. And if you don't have fields that you want to map, then you can just click on this icon, and then that will enable you to create a new custom field in Cine-Q. The other field that we wanted to map is the date, because we're talking about a car insurance renewal, and we do need the car insurance renewal date. So there's a field in HubSpot called close date. We could use that one. Close date. There we go, close date. And let's map it to our temp date 01, because that's the field that we're using in our personalized video. So that's pretty much how you map the fields when you get data from HubSpot. And let's set up the other side, which is when we push data into HubSpot. So the CRN, so these are the Cine-Q fields, and now we're mapping it to the HubSpot fields. So the CRN field go to the Cine-Q CRN. That's a custom field or custom property we created in HubSpot. The personalized URL is going to go to the personalized URL field, and the campaign ID is going to go to the Cine-Q campaign ID. Now these are very important. We'll come back to it later on when we set up the workflows in HubSpot. And we do want to save this as HubSpot as a preset so that we can keep reusing it if we need to. Now if we click on save, that's pretty much it. Well, now we have this integration set up. It's active. We can see that that little circle changed to green from orange. And if we go back to our campaign, then go to executions. and we click on add. Now HubSpot appears in here, so just select it and click on save. So basically from now on, when this campaign is executed, then the data, the mapped data will be transferred over to HubSpot, and then in HubSpot you can use it for various workflows, in various workflows. So let's go back to HubSpot. So that's the email that we already covered. And now we're going to go to automation, click on workflow. And the first workflow, if we go back to our diagram, the first workflow is send data to Cine-Q. So we need some sort of workflow that will send the data to Cine-Q. So create workflow. And we do want to start from scratch, so that's good. And what we want to do is we want to set the enrollment. How do we want these people to, how do we want our contacts to go through this workflow? So what we're going to do is we're going to say Cine-Q trigger is set to, now we're going to jump back to our Cine-Q campaign, because this is very important that we set this up correctly. So our criteria for this campaign is that the Cine-Q campaign trigger or camp trigger field is send me HubSpot demo. So I'm just going to copy that one and paste it in here. So what we're doing now is we say that if the Cine-Q trigger field in HubSpot is set to send me HubSpot demo, then, so that's the first step. So this is how we enroll contacts into this workflow. Then what we want to do is we want to call a webhook. So let's go back to Cine-Q and collect our webhook. We go to data, integrations. And because this integration has already been set up, the webhook is now available. So let's just click on copy to clipboard, go back to HubSpot, new action, and trigger webhook. It can be a post, that's fine, and then we just paste the URL, the webhook URL into the field available. And basically we just need to name this. Let's call it send, let's call it trigger Cine-Q campaign, and click on review. We don't have anybody in this particular workflow at the moment, but everything looks fine. So no, I only want to enroll contacts who meet this criteria moving forward. So let's turn this on, and this workflow is now active. The next workflow that we need to set up is when we receive data. So if we go back to our diagram, so what we set up is this one, send data to Cine-Q. And now what we need is when Cine-Q sends data back to HubSpot, we do need to send the email to our audience. So let's go back and create a new workflow. Start from scratch is fine again. And enrollment trigger. Once again, contact properties is what we're going to use. And in this particular case, we're going to use Cine-Q campaign ID. So once the campaign ID, let's go back to Cine-Q again, and we need to grab our campaign ID. The way we do that is we go to campaigns, we find the campaign that we want to work with, and up over here on the URL, we just grab that ID. That's our Cine-Q campaign ID that will send the data to HubSpot. So let's just paste it in there, apply filter, save. And the next step is we're going to say, okay, let's send email. So that is the email that we want to send. Save. So that's pretty much it. Basically, as soon as as soon as Cine-Q sends the data to HubSpot and one of the contacts Cine-Q campaign ID field changes to the Cine-Q campaign ID that we're interested in, then it will send out that particular email. So that we can just name it to send personalized video and click on review. And I want to only enroll contacts who meet the criteria after turning the workflow on. So we just select that one, and then re-enrollment contacts can be enrolled in this for multiple times. That is correct. So that's important because we don't want the same message to go out to the given individual multiple times. So let's turn this on, and now we basically set up our two workflows. We already set up the trigger campaign in Cine-Q. We already set up the integration. We already discussed the first section. So it's time to test how this integration works. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a contact. So let's go over to create contact. Let's call this Peter demo 001, and the trigger, the Cine-Q trigger. Now this is very important that it has to match exactly what we have in the Cine-Q campaign. So we're just going to copy our selection criteria and paste it in here. And the close date, let's just make it on 1st of July and create contact. So HubSpot automatically opens this particular contact, and we can see that this contact has already been added to a workflow. So let's go over to workflows, and we can see that trigger Cine-Q campaign total enrolled is 1. That means the webhook was most likely called. So let's go over to campaigns and see if the campaign commenced executions, and we can see that the campaign has already been triggered. And let's go over to data and see if we have this particular context showing up. So Cine-Q demo 001, that's basically what we set up today. So that's our contact. Now we'll just have to wait for the campaign to finish executing, and once the execution is done, then we'll go back to HubSpot and we should expect the personalized URL to show up in HubSpot for this particular record. The personalized videos are now ready. We can see that the status is completed, and we can also click in here and we can see the timeline. We can see exactly what happened, what data has been transferred over to HubSpot, and we can see that there were no errors. So that's fantastic. Let's go over to HubSpot and we will find our record contacts. That was our record, and what we want to look for is the personalized URL field, whether it has been updated. There we go. The personalized URL field has been updated, so we can rightfully assume that the workflow also triggered. There we go. So send personalized video now has a total enrolled of 1. So let's go over to our email. We can see that the email has been sent by HubSpot. So demo HubSpot email 001, that's the one that we created. And there is our email address. And here we go. If we click on this image, then it takes us to a Cine-Q landing page that was linked to this particular campaign. And we can see the personalized video being displayed in here. And we can see that it has been addressed to the correct viewer, and also the renewal date is being displayed correctly. So that's how you set up a closed loop integration between HubSpot and Cine-Q. Thank you for watching.